So the changes that we made were having to do with the knee pads. The leaping rule was changed, and then we amended a little bit the horse collar tackle rule. Now, I should say that we talked a lot about blocking below the waist, and the targeting foul also, as always, got quite a bit of attention at the Rules Committee meeting. In the end, we decided not to do anything about blocking below the waist this year. Okay, well, let's look at these three changes in a little bit more detail. First of all, the knee pads. For a number of years, we've had it where the players had to wear knee pads, but the knees didn't have to be covered. It didn't make a lot of sense, but the officiating community got so tired of having to deal with this that the committee basically said we sort of give up. Last year, however, there was a couple of games, a couple of high-profile games, one on Thursday night where guys were essentially wearing biker shorts. And so the committee said, we got to get a grip on this. And so the rule was changed now, as you see there, to have the pants and the knees, the pants and the knee pads must cover the knees. So that's a good change, and we'll get support for calling that rule. Here you can see a player, several players with the pants not even coming close to the top of the knees. Now we're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing way too much of it, and we're letting them get away with it. Remember that even though the rule for covering the knees doesn't officially take effect until 2018, the interpretation for this year is that they must at least come to the tops of the knees, and this is well understood. This should be a surprise to no one. So we must enforce the rules about equipment. This is illegal equipment, and according to Rule 148, the player must leave the game for at least one down and must get the equipment fixed before he can come back into the game. Now, this may mean sending several players to the sideline, but if we don't get a grip on this, we're never going to get control of these uniforms. The next slide, slide number 4, shows the leaping and hurdling rule, 9111B, and this was changed in the following way, and it says, and you can see the new language there, a player is not allowed to leap or hurdle in an obvious attempt to block a field goal or a try. And it's okay if he's aligned in a stationary position within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped. The big change is this, in the note there, it doesn't matter where the player lands. You remember that the rule to now has been that if the player landed on another player, that was a foul. If he landed on the ground, it was okay. But the committee talked about this as a protection for the hurdler and the leaper as much as anything else. So it's outlawed now. It just says that a player cannot run forward from beyond the neutral zone and leap or hurdle. And that's the end of that. So I think that's a good change, and that'll protect the players that do this action.
So, we know this play that we saw where a guy leaps and makes it over. Now that would be a foul. Last year, it was all questionable, but now that's clearly a foul. But I want to focus on the second guy that's going to run forward. And we've had questions around this. What if you don't land on anybody? But here we're going to see the second guy run forward, and he's going to leap in an attempt to block the kick. And even though, he may brush some people. You can see him from the end zone, number 20. He may brush some people coming down. You might say last year this would not have been a foul, but in our new rule, that would be a foul. So both of these guys would be guilty of a foul on this play. And this play is really an illustration of why the rule was put in. You're going to see a guy run forward, leap, and then he's not going to make it and go down head first. And the player safety component is, he could hurt himself. He could kick a player in the head as he's trying to leap over. So that was a foul last year and clearly a foul this year. And then finally, we've had questions about this. You're going to see this player right here. He's got his foot within a yard of the line, and he really doesn't run forward. He just jumps. And so no problem with this. This is a legal play, and we would not have an issue. So it's only a foul if you're more than a yard away from the line of scrimmage and you run forward and leap in an attempt.
Slide number 5, a brief and slight modification to the horse collar tackle. We've added the language, the nameplate area. So in other words, sometimes you see situations where a player trying to bring a ball carrier down will grab him maybe slightly below the collar and not really get his hand inside the collar or the shoulder pad, but grab at that nameplate area and jerk him down. And this is just as much a dangerous play as if he actually gotten inside the collar. Don't fly spec this. If it looks like it's in the nameplate area, it is. If it gets down on the numbers, then that's not a foul. And he's very unlikely to be able to jerk the guy quickly to the ground anyway by grabbing so low on the jersey. So again, just a very slight change in the horse collar tackle rule having to do with adding the language about the nameplate area to the rule in 9.1.15.
Now, this next play we want to look at is an illustration of the new rule around horse collar tackle and adding the nameplate area to it. So here you're going to see a play where a player goes high on the jersey, immediately pulls him back, snaps him down, and that would be a foul under our new rule. So let's make sure we're all aware of this.
As always, we'll make some editorial changes, and slide number 6 shows the ones that I consider to be the key changes in outline. And let me just quickly mention those. Halftime intermission, we've talked about ways of speeding up the game, not by taking plays out of the game, but by managing those times when the ball is dead. And halftime continues to be a creeping problem, so I'll talk about a change there. The second one has to do with the 10-second runoff, and I just want to make the point, and this is going to be more clear in the book now, that the 10-second runoff trumps or supersedes any other clock rule. So I'll talk about what that means. The next item says clarification of a charged team timeout. There's no change here. It's just that sometimes it's a little confusing what the length of that timeout is. So I tried to make this more clear in an editorial change in the book. The next one is a clarification on intentional grounding. This is my bad. There was some confusing language in there last year, so hopefully that's cleared up. The most important one probably is sideline management, and I'm going to talk about the changes that are being made there that are very strongly supported by the coaches. So those are the changes in outline, and now let's look at those in a little more detail. Slide number 7 shows the rule editorial change about halftime intermission, and this is an editorial change that actually the Rules Committee voted on. The intermission is 20 minutes for a regular season game. Now, postseason games, bowl games, and playoff games, for example, are not subject to this 20-minute rule. But it's always said to be 20 minutes, but now it says it can be shortened by mutual agreement of both schools. The current rule says it can be changed by mutual agreement, and the change is always up. In other words, they always want to let the halftime go longer. So now the maximum is 20 minutes. The teams can reduce it if they want to. Slide number 8, the 10-second runoff rule. This is not a change, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that the 10-second runoff rule supersedes all other clock rules. And the reference to Rule 332F is this. Paragraph F says that if you've got the clock stopped for several reasons, more than one reason, and one of those says that the clock will start on the ready, and the other one says the clock will start on the snap, then the snap trumps the ready. In other words, the clock will start on the snap. However, if you have a 10-second runoff situation, then that overrides everything else. And so that's an exception to paragraph F. Slide 9 shows an example of this. This is going to look funny to you, but this is the rule. Here's a play. Suppose you're inside a minute and a half, and the quarterback is backed up in his own end zone, and he's flagged for intentional grounding. And the defensive team, Team B, accepts the penalty, which results in the safety and the 10-second runoff. Well, when it's a safety, you're going to have a free kick, and you're not going to start the clock until the ball is legally touched in the field of play. But because of the 10-second runoff, you're going to have that clock start on the ready for play before the ball is kicked on a safety. Now, that looks funny, but that is the rule, because the 10-second runoff, it's going to start when the clock, when the ball is declared ready for play, and not wait until some other time to start it. Slide number 10 talks about a team timeout. This is not a change at all, but there's been some confusion, and so I'm writing the rule so that I hope it's clearer. Slide number 11, intentional grounding. You know, we have this exception on intentional grounding that if the quarterback drops back, he gets outside the tackle box and he throws the ball away so that he's outside the tackle box and the ball lands beyond the line of scrimmage, then that's not a foul. But if he hands the ball off to somebody else, or if he pitches the ball off to somebody else, that somebody else did not receive that same protection. So the current rule says something to the effect that if the passer loses possession of the ball, then he's not protected by the grounding, even if he regains that possession. That's a little bit confusing, and it makes it sound like that if he fumbles the ball and gets it right back, he can't legally ground it. So what I'm saying now is that it's okay to legally ground the ball as long as he doesn't relinquish possession to another player. That's the intent of the rule. So a few people pointed out last year that simply say that he lost possession of the ball wasn't enough, because it really means giving up possession to another player.
Now, this next play we're going to take a look at illustrates very well a new editorial change that we have this year. And we know it's not a foul if the passer has been outside the tackle box and then throws the ball away across the line of scrimmage. But the editorial change says, but he can't relinquish possession of the ball to another player. So as we run this forward, you're going to see the quarterback here does relinquish possession, gets it back, now is going to work outside the tackle box, throw it across the line. And still the referee needs help here to know, was there a receiver in the area? And it's probably clear from the end zone view. You can see, and remember, when in question, the quarterback is outside the tackle box. So here we would put him outside. So normally this pass crosses the line, we're okay. But as you can tell, there's no receiver in the area. He has relinquished possession. He gets it back. And so this would be a foul. And we need good crew communication to let the referee know that we've got no receiver in the area.
We get a good call for intentional grounding here. The passer is outside the tackle box and throws the ball beyond the line of scrimmage, but he's not the player who originally received the snap. And so therefore, if that player relinquishes possession of the ball to someone else, even if he gets it back himself, he is not legally allowed to ground the ball. The referee and the TV analyst both do a great job of describing this. So good work by everyone involved on getting this intentional grounding.
Handed the ball off. He had given up possession. He is not eligible to legally ground the ball. Intentional grounding. Number 14 of the offense. Ball replaced to the spot of the ball.
Slide number 12 talks about Rule 921B. This is a change in the sideline management. And we're tightening up on this, and we're trying to keep our sidelines clean. And the Rules Committee is very supportive of us making sure that the coaches and players stay back. So the language of 921B has been changed somewhat. And you can see it there. The new language is that they're not allowed to get out there to protest an officiating decision or to communicate with players or officials without permission of the referee. If you compare that language with the current language, you can see what the differences are.